to the Training and Intensity Explained, and this is where I will teach you about what to do when you go in the gym and how to increase your intensity and how to go through your reps when it comes to training in the gym. So you all have your programs and you all have your sets and your reps laid out for you. But what you need to do is with your own training is follow the sets and reps, but also take into account that you need to add training intensity within those reps. So, what you want to do is when you check your program and you might have an exercise, say a lateral shoulder raise, or maybe a squat or a hack squat. So, you'll have in your program either 3 or 4 sets, sometimes more, sometimes less. Usually, what happens with the first set, it's going to be a warm-up set. So you're going to use this one to get familiar with the form, introduce yourself to the machine, make sure that you've got the machine in the right setting, in the right length and height for your body. And you're going to do your first set. So your first set is usually going to be a warm-up set anywhere between 8 to 12 reps. Usually I keep it at a standard of about 12 because we're not lifting so heavy. So we're getting used to the exercise, checking to see if we can carry on for the next set with the same kind of number of reps. So when it comes to the intensity, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So there's intensity and volume when in training. So what intensity means is, let me just skip the screen. I will share my screen so that you can see my presentation. Okay, so when it comes to training with intensity and volume, so I'm going to go through these slides with you. So what does it mean? So training intensity and volume, how hard you train versus how much you train and why both matter. So within your program, you'll have a list of different exercises for each day. So Monday might be a lower body day, and you'll have between 5 to 6 different exercises, sometimes more, sometimes 7 or 8, depending on your personal program, how much time you have, what we're focusing on, and all of those things that adjusted for you. So training in intensity and volume, how hard you train versus how much you train and why both matter. So some of you will be training 3 days a week. Some of you will maybe be training 5 days a week. Let's take, for example, say for me, I'm training 5 days a week and I'm training about 7 to 8 different exercises within my program. So the intensity and volume. So in regards to my volume, the volume is quite high because I train quite a lot and I do have a lot of sets and reps. However, my sets and reps are broken down into about 3 sets. So that means the volume, even though I've got a lot of exercises, the volume is not super high because I only need to do, say, 3 to 4 sets. So some of you might be different where you're training 3 times a week and your volume will be slightly higher within those sessions just because you're only getting in 3 times a week. So we want to make the maximum amount of training within that time. So intensity and volume is slightly different. So intensity is how hard you train within that session, and then your volume is your overall volume over the week. So that's the difference between intensity and volume. So understanding intensity and volume can be a game changer. So a lot of people train too light. So they go into the gym and they just get through the sets and reps. So you see it as a list to tick off, and you're just slowly going through those sessions. So it might be like you come in, you do your shoulder raises, you don't think about it, you just pick up the weights and you do your 8 to 12 reps. Or there's too much junk volume. So junk volume is where you are doing more reps than what you would need to do, but you're not pushing yourself like hard. So you're doing like 12 to 15 or 15 to 20 reps, but you're still not going to failure or pushing yourself within those sets and reps. So sometimes more is not better. So for example, I've seen in programs where I've set the sets and reps, and then the client has gone, over and above and done like 15 to 20 reps, but the weight has been staying the same. So it would be like I give you a deadlift, a dumbbell deadlift, and it's like 12 times 8 kilos. And so then that person would do 12 times 8 kilos for 4 sets. I don't know whether it's like because it's lazy to change the weight, like you don't want to go up and pick another weight, or maybe it's just a fact of not knowing how to push yourself further. So that's why I wanted to explain it. It's not always what you see on the paper. So it's like a guideline. So when I set out the sets and reps, it's like, okay, this is how much I think that your level is at the moment, but you have the power within your program to change the sets and reps, adjusting to the training how you feel your body needs to be pushed. So in saying that, like, I don't want you to push too much. So I want you to understand we how we understand intensity within your training. So more is not always better. So doing like extra reps. I'm going to get this confused the whole time. Doing extra reps is not always better, especially if you're not pushing yourself in those reps and they're just the same reps every week, every time. So we don't want to waste our time in the gym. We don't want to be in there for longer, just using junk volume. So junk volume could also be extra reps within your sets where you are pushing the weight too high and you're not getting quality reps. So quality reps is another thing that we need to look into. So what I would always say is you always want to keep some reps in reserve, and we'll come to that after this, but not always, but you do have to have one really good set in your exercise where you really push till failure. So that would probably be the second or third set where you just go crazy, go ham, and really get in some good quality reps, but you are like failing on the last two. So the last two sets, the last two reps are going to be like very difficult for you. You're gonna get that weight up, but you're going to be like changing your facial expression. You're going to be really struggling to get those weights up. So that's what we want to do in at least one of your sets. So progress comes from the right dose of stress and recovery. So there's a fine line between stressing your body out on every session to actually recovering properly as well. So we'll come into that next. But your body adapts to the stimulus you give it. So if you just go in and count the reps, tick them off, do the sets, but you've never really pushed yourself within that session, then every week you're going to be going in doing the same volume, the same intensity, and you're never going to be able to grow because you need to push your muscles to that point of where they just can't be pushed anymore within that session. And this should be happening not every single day, but at least, every week, every 2 weeks, you should be really pushing yourself to failure so that you are breaking through that barrier of that particular weight in order to climb up to a higher weight or even to get some more reps in that session. So we'll move on to the next slide. So, what is training intensity? Intensity is how hard the set feels. Intensity refers to how heavy the weight is, how close you are to failure, and how challenging the set feels. So, what that means is, see, this is me on the hack squat here, and this is 100 kilos. And I've got some knee sleeves on, and this will be about my third set. So, my first set would have been a warm up, and I would have used just that one weight plate. So, probably one each side, that would have been 40 kilos. Super easy for me, but I just want to get onto the machine and feel how it feels on my joints, make sure that everything's working properly, and then just get like mentally prepared for the next sets coming up. So the warm-up set is always just like a warm-up. So I would have done about 12 reps, made sure that my knees are all feeling all nimble and actually connect my mind to the muscles that I'm going to use in the next sets. So if you skip the warm up and you go straight to something heavy, this is where injuries can happen and also where you might have the wrong positioning. There might be something wrong with the machine. So you need to take into all of these things when you're doing your warm up set. So never skip the warm up and don't go hard and heavy on the first set because you're just introducing yourself to the machine. So how heavy the weight is, how close you are to failure, and how challenging the set feels. So after my first warm-up set, I would have tried to do like a first kind of working set, and I would have added on like one more plate. So it would have been about 80 kilos each side. So this is going to be my first working set. My first working set is going to be quite difficult. Not super difficult, but I'm going to make it so that I can actually feel the weight. And also I'm going to try to push myself to failure. So I'm not going to go to complete failure on this first working set. I mean, it depends. I might, depending, but like, I mean, you should try to get at least like two reps till failure. So I would have done about 12 reps here, 10 to 12. And as long as I got quality reps in all of those reps, as long as I felt it well, I felt my body performing well, and I would push it until I couldn't really push it anymore. But I would also just leave like one or two reps in reserve, knowing that after this, I'm going to go for the big 100. So the third set is going to be like my really big set where I really go hard and put like 120%. So I would have loaded up those extra 10 kilos, and this is going to be my defining set, like how much I can actually push in that session. And so I need to get at least 8 reps because we want hypertrophy between 8 to 12 reps to be able to grow muscle, especially for aesthetics. For strength, it's slightly different. So if you want to, become strength athlete where you're doing, heavy deadlifts and you're getting a 1 rep max, then your sets would be slightly shorter and smaller. So probably about five sets to be able to train for strength. So strength and hypertrophy are slightly different. Hypertrophy is where we are building muscle. We are like bodybuilders. We're trying to do for aesthetics, like to look good, to build muscle. And then strength training is more like how much can you really lift and how much can you put your body through. And, we're trying to get these PBs like every other week. Whereas hypertrophy, building muscle, maintaining muscle, we only really need to get between 8 to 12, sometimes 6 to 25. It also just depends. So back to the topic, how heavy the weight is. So 80 kilos for me would have been pretty heavy, but I want to push myself on the next set at 100 kilos and see how much I can really get and how challenging the set feels. So the intensity in a hack squat would be super high, probably one of the hardest exercises there are. And this would have been one of my most challenging sets in the whole entire session. So I think here I probably got between 6 to 8 reps. I'll always be aiming for 8 on my heaviest one. And then if I wasn't feeling too good that day, if I was tired, if I wasn't properly warmed up, so many different factors. Maybe if I had my period, I would be, getting closer to 6. But you always want to go into the set aiming for that higher number. Like I could have possibly got 12 on this day because if I felt at 8 reps, I could still go for more. I would push myself for more. But quite often on these really heavy machines, it's very hard. And getting that 8 is like merit enough to be able to get there. So a client cue here is could I have done more reps? So when I got off this hack squat and if I had done 100 kgs for 8 reps and I felt like I still could have gotten more, then I know that I wouldn't have of trained till failure. And failure is when you really just can't get the weight up. You are like you've got to try. You don't just like finish and then stop at 8. You've got to be able to see if you could get one more. So if I knew that I couldn't get from the bottom of the hack squat to the top safely without like caving in underneath it. Sometimes that happens as well because I do push myself to failure to see if I can get that up. So sometimes what you'll find is I'll get crushed underneath the hack squat, not crushed, but like I won't be able to get back up. And that's when I know, okay, that's true failure. So you should not always be pushing yourself to failure, but at least be very close to failure because this is how you're really going to grow and get stronger. So once I'm able to get this, say, 100 kilos on the hack squat, and then I'm able to get like maybe the next week I can add on 2.5 kilos each side, or I can add on 5 kilos each side. I'm going to feel a lot stronger, and that's going to help me grow. And that's going to help me get past this limit of 100 kilos. I can actually push for more. But there's many other factors that we need to take into consideration when it comes to, pushing for these really, really heavy weights is the injury risk. Like, if we go super heavy, like if I go for 120, 140, am I going to cause injury to my body? Is it going to have like worse consequences than better? So there's a lot of things that you've got to consider before really, really, really pushing to failure. Like all of the time. So, and I'll come into that soon as well. Also has to do with recovery. So, intensity made simple. So, how to measure intensity? Reps in reserve, aka RIR. We don't really talk about this terminology because it's not super relevant, especially with lifestyle clients. But 3 reps left in the tank. So, 3 RIR would be I would have done the set and I would have got like perfect reps, and then I would have got a little bit pushed towards the end. Say if I had 12 to 15, and I might have finished at 12 and it would have been all perfect reps and I wouldn't have really pushed myself too much. And when you want to use reps in reserve, it could be like if you're saving your strength for the biggest lift after this, maybe you are just starting your session and you know that you've got a long way to go. So you don't want to absolutely punish yourself at the beginning. Um, 1 rep left, so 1 RAR would mean that you've got perfect form. You've been able to do all of your reps. You might have like 10 to 12, and you might hit like, say, 11 or even 12, but you know that you could have actually pushed for one more, but then you'll just sort of save that energy. So 0 reps in reserve is true failure. So you'll see on this video, I see if I can play it again. So here I think I'm doing 10 to 12. And I think I ended up pushing for 15, but I'm not quite sure. But on this video, I actually fail. So I can't actually get there. But see here, this is probably like the 12th, 13th, 14th rep. And now I'm starting to really feel it. Like I'm starting to feel like I'm not like I'm pushing. Oh gosh, it missed it. Sorry. So after this, I end up getting like a half rep. So I'm like, I can't push. And this is true failure when you really just can't finish the end of the set. So those last few reps, I was getting it up. I could have quit then, but I knew that I wanted to keep going because I wanted to feel my body like mechanically fail under the weight. And that means that you've got true failure, like no reps in the tank. So this is where I want you to think about training, like moving forward, not all the time, not every single day. When you're feeling strong, um, it's good to push your body to failure where you can't actually lift the weight anymore. And my coaching style would be like try to leave at least, 2 reps in reserve, sometimes none. So go to failure when you're feeling good, feeling strong. You should always try to aim to go to failure. But there are situations where you might not want to, like if you are training before a flight, if you are on your period, if you have a long session ahead of you. So there's so many different factors, and people might disagree on me with these things, but I think that when it comes to training, there's a happy medium. So you need to be not just going through the motions, so not just doing your 8 to 12 reps and not even feeling it anywhere. So that's just ticking something off the list. It's not actually training. Does that make sense? So I want you to be able to push yourself. So at least in one of your sets, say maybe the second or third set, you're going to really push yourself to failure so that you are going to challenge your muscle to grow. So this is what the intensity is and where intensity comes from. So you'll see big bodybuilders and stuff talking about intensity all the time and how much your face is shaking, but like we don't absolutely want to go there all the time, but every now and then, especially for the big lifts that you want to focus on, like a hip thrust. Like for me, for example, I always go to failure on a hip thrust because this is where I really want to grow in my glutes. Upper body, I will go to failure most of the time, but like I'm not really needing to grow my back muscles and things, but I'll still go to failure because I want to maintain my muscle and I want to also like not grow it, but make sure that it stays full and plump for the rest of my life. So let's go to the next slide. So, what is training volume? So, volume is how much total work you do. So, volume includes sets, reps, exercises, and weekly workload. So, this is something that as your coach, I'm more in control of than you. So, but in saying that, it doesn't mean that you can't also manage it within your training. So, sets, reps, exercises, and weekly workload. So, it depends on all of your individual goals, but I have some clients that do 3 days a week. I have some clients that do 5 days a week. I have some clients that do 5 days a week plus add extra sets and reps and also do ab work and all other things. So your training volume, it's very hard to um, pinpoint everybody's training volume, but basically it's the amount of sets you have, the amount of reps, and the exercises. So if you all have about 5 to 6 exercises on your training program, and you've got usually between 3 to 4 sets within those, if you added up all those sets and reps, that would be like how many sets you had in that workout. So yesterday I trained to lower body and I had 26 sets. So that 26 would have been divided by 3 to 4. And that's the training volume. So it's the whole amount of volume you have across the week. And this also changes because it depends on your lifestyle, your job. If you're cabin crew, your training volume, it will always be slightly different. And there's no way that we can really fix that because some days you're flying, some days you're not. So we try to keep it at least 3 to 4 days training. And within those training sessions, you'll have about 5 to 6 workouts. And then within those workouts, you'll have about um, sorry, 3 to 4 sets. And within those sets, you'll have between 8 to 12 reps, sometimes 15. So if you wanted to add your overall training volume, we could definitely do that and we could work out together. And then what I also wanted to mention today is that if you find your training volume is too high for your lifestyle, that's when we need to like look at it individually and we can either bring it down or if you think your training volume is too low. So maybe you're training 3 days a week and you're not seeing results as fast as you wanted to. That's when we could look at your overall training volume and the intensity and effort that you're putting into your sessions and see what needs to change to be able to really grow and to really change and build some muscle. And then of course, when you build that muscle, that's when it's going to be easier for you to drop fat. So everything comes together like it comes down to how hard you're training. Are you really training hard? Are you training with intensity? And do you have enough volume? And then do you maybe have too much volume? Is it becoming um well, I forgot the word, not beneficial to your health, where you are training too much that your body is not having a chance to recover. So we also want to avoid that. So there are a lot of different factors, but I'm here just to tell you the basics about volume and intensity. So intensity versus volume, they are not the same and why both matter. So remember, intensity is how hard you train within your training sessions and within your sets and every single rep and your load and effort and your muscle stimulus. So the load is it refers to like say putting a plate on the bar. That's the load, that's the weight. So the load that your body is under. So when it comes to a shoulder raise, you pick up 7 or 8 kilo dumbbells. That's the load that you're carrying. And then your effort, that comes down to your like intensity and your reps in reserve and how many reps you lift in the tank. So if you are training to maximum effort every single session, you're going to see the best results. And it doesn't always have to be pushing yourself to those failures, but it could be within the rep, like the way you slow down the rep, the way you think about your mind muscle connection. If your brain is in your training session, not like looking at other people in the gym or wondering what you're going to cook for dinner. So when you really want to knuckle down and focus on intensity, all of these things matter. Like you need to be off your phone in the gym. You need to be fully focusing on each rep and each set and thinking through the process of lifting the weight, like of your shoulder muscle contracting. Are you feeling it in the right place? All of these things. So this will be included in your intensity. So the volume is how much the total work that you've done, fatigue accumulation, and you need both. So If you were going to train, say, the volume, if you did 3 days of training in a row and you you did like extra reps, extra sets on all of those trainings, so you would be increasing your volume, maybe over exerting what you would need to be doing within those 3 days. So it is always good to have like a rest day, and like everybody has rest days programmed into their program. But what I find is that with cabin crew, we have kind of like a forced rest day because you have to do a flight in between. You might be flying for 24 hours from Dubai to New York, and this is going to be a forced rest day because you're not able to train on that day. And then you would just train the next day. But also, if your body is not recovered and if you're still fatigued, and then you try to do the same amount of volume as you would on a normal week, this can sometimes affect your training intensity and your effort. And also, you might just have too much volume within a short space amount of time. So this is why rest days are also really important. So for most of my like corporate clients and things, they work Monday to Friday and they prefer to have the rest days on the weekend, so Saturday, Sunday to recover. This can also take a toll on your body because your training volume from Monday to Friday is very high and you don't really get a break in between to recover. So this is where sometimes we could look at your program and be like, would it make sense to train, 2 days on, have a break on a Wednesday, and then train 2 days, and then maybe one day on the weekend? However, it's very individual because for some people, they like to keep their standard work week along with the training week. So it goes together. So you're not changing your routine in the week so that you can stick to the same routine. So volume is how much the total work and fatigue accumulation as well. So if your volume of sets and reps are too high, and this can often happen if you are adding extra reps and sets, trying to trying to overcompensate and trying to like push yourself too much, where it could actually bring your training volume too high, and then you need to bring it back to be able to recover properly as well. And imagine if you're putting intensity and volume, like too much intensity and too much volume within your week of training, that's when your recovery is going to suffer and you won't be able to recover fast enough to be able to actually benefit from your training and grow. So I've got a little example here of a couple of workouts. This is a lower body apartment workout. So we've got 15 kgs times 10 for a bench step up. And then we've got 15 kg. So this is obviously, it's a beginner program. So this is why the reps all stay the same because it's somebody who's just getting introduced to training. They don't need to they don't need to know so much about these things because they're just getting into the gym. So then we've got a dumbbell front reverse lunge, 7 kilos times 10, 7 kilos times 10, 8 kilos times 10. So that 8 kilo one is going to be the one where you're going to, okay, this is my big set. I'm going to push myself through this one. And say here with the dumbbell single leg deadlift, 7 kgs times 10. So this is kind of like the warm up one. 8 kg times 10. This is when we're gonna this is gonna be our medium or our first working set. And then the 10 kilos by 6 to 8. So this is gonna be the really heavy set that we want to really push hard and try to go to failure. So the reason why there's 6 to 8, because aim for 8, but if you stop at 6, it's okay. But underneath 6 would be okay, we need to drop the weight and we need to go back to that 8 kilos and try to get at least, 10 to 12 and 8 kilos before we can push ourselves to that 10 kilos because we can only get 4. So does that make sense? It's about knowing what your body can do, pushing yourself to the limit, but also working your way up to getting that strength. All right. So next slide. So why more is not always better. So sometimes I do see clients, pushing themselves to do a bit more or asking me for more sessions in the week. So maybe you've already got 5 sessions and you'd like to do a 6 session. So this is great initiative, and it's like you always want to be training and you want to be, maybe looking at more as like a fat loss type thing. You want to train more so that you burn more calories. But this is also not a great way to look at it. So too much volume can equal to stalled progress. So for example, like maybe for me, if towards my competition, if I was doing too much volume, like too many workouts, maybe two workouts a day or something, trying to lose weight before my competition. If I was doing that, my body wouldn't be able to recover. And then I would have stalled progress because your body needs rest to repair. So when you are resting, like a rest day or a day off from gym, even sleeping, this is actually the most important part about building strength and gaining muscle because we kind of wear and tear and like, push our muscles in the gym. But when they grow is actually when we're resting and when we're recovering from those sessions. So it's kind of like a joke in the like fitness world was like people that love fitness, they hate having a rest day because not everyone, but like, you love the gym so much, you just want to be there all the time. So it's very hard to keep yourself away from the gym. But rest days are often where we make the most progress and where our body fully recovers so that we can go back into the gym and crush it again. And if you have too much volume, and you may notice this in yourselves, and if you do, this is something that we need to like speak about to make sure that you are recovering well. So if you're constantly sore, if you wake up every day and your muscles and your joints and everything just absolutely hurts. So I'm not saying like after one heavy leg day and that, one day or 2 days later, you're super, super sore. That can be also a good sign that you are pushing yourself hard enough to be able to, or maybe you tried something new, like a new exercise, or you put an extra weight on the bar, or you really went super intense that day. So you shouldn't be constantly sore. And if you are, it means that either something in your program needs to change, whether that's the volume, or your rest and recovery methods need to be looked at as well. And then it could also just be things like you might need more vitamins and minerals in your diet. You might also need more protein to recover. So you've got to make sure that you're following all of the steps before you maybe blame it on the volume or maybe something in the exercises is not right for your hip joint or your knees. So we'd need to look at that. But if you're constantly sore, there'll be no strength progression because you'll always be going into the gym sore. So you won't be able to push yourself in those sets and reps. And then flat workouts. So when you go into the gym, you won't feel motivated because you're still sore from the other session. And then you'll be feeling drained. So when you are training 5 days a week, growth happens, 40% in the gym and it happens 60% outside of the gym. So that's your recovery, your nutrition, your sleep. So these are things you also need to look at when it comes to training intensity and volume. More is not always better. You need to also be thinking about recovery as well. And that's something that I'm super good with these days, especially now that I'm a little bit older. So like I'm 40 now, and when I was training when I was like 32, 27, I would say more 32 because I started training when I was 30. So I was a machine. Like I could put like 4 or 5 plates on a leg press, no problem. I was just smashing out workouts. I was doing crazy like training with some of the other PTs in Dubai. I was just like, it was just like every single session, I would absolutely wreck myself and, push till failure. I would have, my friend Mansell PT, he was pushing me so much as well. I would just go until my body couldn't go anymore. But now I'm a lot smarter because I know that I want longevity, I want long term in bodybuilding. So I want to be not like I don't want to use that word, not like an absolute pussy, but I want to be smart. So I want to push myself, but I also want to be careful with my joints, be careful with my recovery. So if I'm not recovering from my sessions and I'm just pushing my body to the limits every single day, especially at this age, it's not going to be good for me in the long run. So you can also just look at, those really famous bodybuilders, the big guys, that are not so big these days anymore, and they've really put their body through a lot of stress and now they're suffering the consequences. So we want to be training hard and we want to be training towards our goals and what we want to do, like grow muscle, but we don't need to constantly push ourselves, to injury every single session. So um It's something to think about. So it's difficult because it's condescending. It's like I want you to push hard, but I also want you to be careful. But it's important to just understand these factors as well. So remember that growth happens when you recover, not actually when you're training. Okay, so why intensity drives results? So low intensity equals low stimulus, and training too easy leads to no muscle growth, no strength gains, and wasted time. So you don't want to be wasting your time in the sessions. Like you don't want to pay a coach, have a trainer, and then, just be working out to tick off the boxes. So sometimes this could work for fat loss if you're just moving your body, like, you're getting activity and you're burning some calories. But that would also just be like going to one of those strength classes, like a grit session where you you lift some light weights and you run around. So it's basically cardio with weights. So this can help you burn calories for the day and maybe go towards total fat loss, but it's not going to help you grow muscle. So I put a picture of my client Lizanne here. So she's a mother of two, and this is her actually 2 weeks or so after birth. So she tried to start training initially, and it was just too early, and that was on her own. Then she came back to me and she slowly but surely started her strength training workouts. And we just did these at home. So we used bands, we used dumbbells. But because of the intensity that Lizanne put into her sessions, so she didn't have the best equipment. She had resistance bands and she had a couple of light dumbbells and she had body weight. But the difference here is that even though she trained at home with very light weights, she was able to grow muscle. You can see in her biceps, she was able to like tighten her core, all of her core and her abs there, and even look at her quads. So she challenged herself to grow these muscles and to change her physique from, after birth to actually having some muscle in her body, because she stimulated her muscles so much. So I've also done this in lockdown where I did a couple of home workouts, but because I know how to connect my mind to my muscle, I know how to intensify the workout by driving the force through my heels or, thinking about that muscle connection. So when you're focusing on your workout and you're really thinking about the intensity, no matter what kind of workout it is, you can really drive sorry, what's the word? Stimulus to your muscles. So it's even if you did like an isometric hold, if you stood there with your bicep and you just held it for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, if you did that every single day, especially if you came back from an injury and maybe you hurt your bicep, you could literally just do like an iso hold and intensify that like contraction, and you'd be able to build muscle this way. So that's why, like, when I see people going into the gym, I don't judge, but I might see a guy lifting some weights, maybe like 20 kilos dumbbells, and he's trying to do some shoulder raises, but he's standing in the mirror and he's just like lifting them up like this, like and like, but this is not creating stimulus. It's just ego lifting, or like, I don't know, it's just looks quite funny to watch. But and everybody's made this mistake before. I've also done this, but if you pick up like maybe 6 kilo dumbbells instead of 20 kilos, and you really, really just drive them up slowly from your shoulder joint, and you're thinking about it, and you're thinking, how can I lift this up with the most intensity possible? If you did that, for 4 sets, 8 to 12 reps, really, really, really thinking. And then when it came to those last 3 sets, you would push yourself, sorry, 3 reps, you'd push yourself to the absolute limit. And even like, I think I've done this, with maybe 8 or 9, 10 kilos, you push to like 15, because with shoulders, you can actually get the numbers higher with lighter weights. And if he did that, instead of going in and throwing those 20 kilo dumbbells around, he would actually grow more muscle because he'd be like thinking about it. So this is what I say when I say with the Lizanne is like, so she was doing some body weight workouts, some push-ups, some banded things, but because she was training with really proper intensity, she was able to change her whole physique and with very light weights. So this is why intensity drives results. Yes, there's load, there's volume, there's all these things that we need to take into account, and you need to like, push yourself heavier as you get down the line. But intensity is what's going to get you to grow muscle and in return burn fat. So the more muscle you have, the more easier it is to actually burn body fat. And that's exactly what Lizanne's done here. So it's not just about going into the gym and getting through your session. It's going into the gym with intent and like thinking about those sets and reps every single time. Okay, so now we've got so the sweet spot. So what we aim for in your program. So this is a picture of some of my previous clients. This is this is Jasmina. And she went from this to this. And also, she was actually training in her apartment gym. So she's cabin crew. So she was training like 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes consistently 4 times, sometimes 5 times. But, definitely at least 3 times a week, which is sort of what you need to be able to grow muscle. So you can train twice a week and still be able to grow muscle, but the process is going to be a lot slower just because the volume over time is less. But if she was training 5 times a week, and recovering well, she may have been able to get, to this physique faster. But I think we did this in maybe like 4 or 5 months. And she was able to change her whole physique because she was able to recover well, she trained well, and now she actually became a PT and she's put on a lot more muscle as well. And this can happen for everybody, for you, but it's just turning up, showing up with intensity, like learning, educating yourself, and also knowing how to push your body and how to train to failure, but then also how to recover and not injure yourself. And this is a picture of Kiara. So she's slightly different from Jasmina, only because she's had a little bit more experience in the gym. She's been an athlete. She was a rugby player. She's also a PE teacher, a swimming coach. So not everybody is on the same level as well. So Kara was in the gym already. She was, doing her sessions and stuff, but she'd just come back from an injury. So she tore her ACL, which is like a joint in the knee. And she wasn't able to train for so long, so she was suffering, recovering from this injury. And this is the thing where recovery was super important for Kiara. So when it came to working out in the gym, that wasn't her priority. Her priority was recovering from her ACL injury. And then when she finally felt okay, she was fully recovered, we needed to get her into the gym because obviously she had put on a bit of body fat and also lost motivation, you know, wasn't really able to train properly because she had to work around her injury. And it was just overall just very demotivating. So she finally got back into the gym and we managed to get her from this body to this body. And she actually lost a lot of body fat in the process. But you can see she still had some muscle underneath, everything, which we also grew. So we grew her shoulders, we grew her biceps, everything. So Kiara's intensity and volume was a lot higher than Jasmina, but they're both different people and with different experiences and different body shape and types. But so Kiara trains very hard and heavy and she really pushes herself. So does Jasmina, but Kiara's training is slightly different where she's doing like 50 kilo chest bench press. Like she can lift more than most men. And that's because she's also learned how to push herself over time. She loves it and she fuels her body really well with, protein and carbs. And because she is a swimming coach, she's already got like a very developed upper body. But Kiara's recovery also was important because she was training at like a pretty high volume. She had a lot of exercises within the week, and she was also training really intensely within those sessions. And that's how she's able to change her physique so much and grow so much muscle, and also kind of like a short amount of space amount of time. And because she has all this muscle and then she was eating like very good food, she was also able to, carve out these abs and everything. And she was still eating like quite a lot of calories, close to 2000, maybe even more, and able to lose all of this body fat because the intensity in her training was so high. She was also needing all these calories to fuel her training. So, that's what we want in the long run is training like with very good intensity, growing a solid amount of muscle to be able to afford to eat all these calories because your body needs the calories from food to be able to generate this muscle and to repair and to grow it. But then at the same time, Kiara's recovery was not super great because she was also working full time, training in the gym, and then doing activity on the weekends as well. So there's a there's a happy medium, but also it's what you like and enjoy, right? So Kara loves to play sports on the weekends and she also loves to go out. So it's a fine line between recovery, training intensity, all of these things really matter. So something we could do for Kara is get her training 4 times a week where her volume is slightly less, but she likes to still put in a lot of intensity. And then that way her recovery would be better because she'd have a day off where she could fully recover from training so that she could enjoy her activities in the weekend. So sometimes what was happening with Kiara was that she was doing too much. And not using Kiara as an example, I just put her picture here because it's a great picture, but sometimes doing too much, like if they call it burning the candle at both ends. So you're training really hard, you're working really hard, you're not really sleeping, and then you're going out really hard. So this can actually also slow your progress because you don't get this chance for your body to recover and regenerate and restore. So the sweet spot, what we want for you in your program is like a moderate volume, high quality intensity. So when you go into your sessions, you're really, really going for it and using that time so that we don't waste our time. And progressive overload. So we want to be like, every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, being able to increase that weight on the bar or, lift a little bit more. So this is where it's important for you to work with me where we push ourselves through the session, and then you also let me know, okay, I managed to up my weight this week, and also for you to go into mentally into the gym and think, okay, today I'm going to push myself and I'm going to do instead of a 30 kilo um Bulgarian split squat on the Smith machine, I'm going to go for 40 kilos because I'm feeling strong, I'm well recovered, and today's going to be the day where I'm going to push myself. And then when you raise that bar and you find that new weight, you always know that, okay, I'm capable of this, and you're able to push yourself in the next session. But it's not going to be like that all the time. So sometimes there'll be things like you haven't slept well, you didn't eat enough before your workout because you were busy and you forgot to have your banana or something. Or maybe you had your period, your cycle's coming, it's a week until your period's due, and you're just feeling weaker. So sometimes these things happen where you have to bring either the volume or the intensity back a notch, but it doesn't mean that you can't go back and do that when you're feeling stronger the next week. So always remember to push yourself, but also remember to like feel how your body is. But it doesn't mean be lazy, don't push yourself because you're tired. It just means that if you know that there's no way you're going to get that type of intensity this week because it's your period week or because you injured your leg or something, but you always know in the future that, okay, I am able to push myself. And then you've got to get enough recovery. So we need at least 7 to 8 hours sleep every night. 6 hours minimum, but like even this is very unhealthy. So try to get 7 to 8 hours sleep. Some people need more sleep. So recovery is super important for being able to succeed in your program as well. So I'm going to try and wrap this up because I know I've been talking for a long time. So what this means for you, and how to apply this in your workouts. So um, train with intent, use time under tension, slow down your reps and know your potential and add more weight where you can. Train to failure or close to failure. So 1 to 2 reps in reserve would be kind of like a sweet spot. And then every now and then, especially on that second or third set, you want to train to failure. So train with intent means going into the gym, knowing what you've got to do and not just ticking it off the boxes, like going into your session off your phone, good music, well prepared with your pre-workout meal already in. Time under tension means like, especially on the eccentric movement. So when you're lifting a weight towards your body, you want to use force and you want to be aggressive. And then when you're lowering the weight down, or even sometimes like if you're doing a lunge or if you're doing a squat, you want to really slow down your rep and feel every fiber and muscle working. You don't have to go super slow, but do what works for you. For me, I like to train pretty slowly because I want to feel everything and I want to know where it's coming from. But in saying that, I'm not going to train super slow. So if I'm going to do a shoulder raise, I'm not going to shoulder raise like this. I'm going to use like a medium, but I'm not going to be like that guy with the 20 kilos just doing this because it's not. So that's no time under tension. That's just momentum and just trying to get through a session. So slow down your reps and really think about them and really think about like moving. Okay, I'm going to move this from A to B, but I'm going to be thinking about my shoulder the whole time, not just moving my elbow up. So know your potential. So don't sell yourself short. Um, Always try to progress in your lifts and don't think like, oh, that's too heavy for me. You've always got to try. You never know unless you don't try. So like you might be scared of adding an extra 10 kilos on, but you might add the 10 kilos on. And as long as it's safe, say maybe you're in a squat rack and, maybe somebody's spotting you, or maybe you've got a safety bar underneath. So you can always try to push yourself. And the worst that's going to happen is that you might try to lift it off the bar and you won't be able to, or you might try to push it off the leg press. And you can feel already that, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. Or you might get stuck under the hack squat like me. But that only happens after I try after 3 or 4 reps, and then on maybe on the fourth one, okay, I can't get it up, but I'm not gonna die. It's like my socks that they say, did you die? So as long as it's safe, you can always try to push yourself for a little bit more. So just make sure that everything's safe around you first before you try. But then you've got to try. To train to failure or at least 1 to 2 reps in reserve. So try to push yourself to failure where you can and push your working sets. So that number 2 set and that number 3, push yourself in those sets because you've had a warm up. Afterwards, you might have a back off set, and a back off set is where you can lower the weight. So maybe after set 3, you have another set, like a set 4. And this one, you're going to bring the weight back down. So you're going to bring the weight maybe one plate off, like 20 to 30% lower than what your highest one was. So don't rush your ego lifts. So when you are feeling tired, you're fatigued. Maybe you've been training for 3 days and you're just not feeling super pumped on that session. Or you've been flying, you haven't recovered, you're still in a different time zone. You're on your cycle, your period. Maybe it's a week before your period's due, maybe it's the day of your period. These are the days where don't rush your ego lift when you're super tired. Sometimes you might surprise yourself. You might be on your period. Sometimes you might feel super strong. So don't sell yourself short. But if you are feeling, tired, fatigued on your cycle, or even injured, so this is a really important time not to push yourself too much. So if your leg is injured, you can still push your body and upper body, or if your upper body's injured, you could still possibly push your lower body. So don't also sell yourself short when you're injured, but also work around your injuries and be careful. But if you are, very much injured in some area, you don't want to overtrain that area. So when it's a serious injury, you just want to avoid it at all costs until you recover and get better because there's no point training an injured body part. You're just going to injure it even more. So rest properly between your sets. So at least 60 seconds for small lifts like shoulders or something, and then 1 to 2 minutes for medium lifts. So that might be like a deadlift, a squat, a hack squat. You need at least 60 seconds to like 2 minutes, sometimes even 3 minutes, like a hip thrust, something really heavy. And then this also depends, like if you are coming back from an injury, you might need longer rest periods. If you are pre and postnatal, so you're just about to have a baby or you're 3 months or 4 months pregnant, you need to have longer rest periods. Or if you are, just coming back from having a baby, you need to have longer rest periods. So these are all different factors, but don't train too fast, too hard. So you've always got to give yourself a little break in between. Um, so trust the program. Also, like always track your weight. So even though your weight might be written down, you have the power to change what you've actually lifted. So a lot of people carry around a logbook. This is not something that I ask you to do because it's already within our app. But what you can do, and it's like you can change the numbers. So when maybe you had a set like 8 times 12 kilos and you were able to do 14 kilos in that set. So I want you to change the number because I know we get complacent and we're not able to like do it on the spot because we're trying to get through the workout. But if you're not like recording the numbers down and changing them, then every time you go into the gym, you're just going to be using the same weight because you're just seeing and reading the same weight. But if you actually change or, ask your coach to change it, then you're pushing yourself to do better. We're actually moving forward. We are, increasing and making changes. So this is where we need to not be complacent and actually change the way we're training instead of just going in and training the same every single week because we're not going to make progress this way. So you do have the power to change your reps and sets in your actual program for yourselves. And then even if you didn't, you could have a logbook or you could make a note on your phone, and then we can go through and change the weights together. So for me, my coach, he gives me the reps and sets, and I control the weight. So I make a note on my phone. I do have a very good memory as well, so I know how much I did like last time. Especially if it's a lift that I've been trying to progress in for a long time, I will know how much I need to do or how much I need to push myself for. And also I just know mentally. So when I do three, like I do a set of 12, and if I can get that 12 really easy, I know, okay, it's time to increase the weight or it's time to add some more reps because I've been training for a long time, so I can do this. But for you also, it's good to just make a note as well, to write it down somewhere. Have a logbook if you want to, or even just open up a note section in your phone. But you should be able to do everything within our training app. You can make notes on there and we can change the weights together. So track your numbers, make notes, track your own lifts in a logbook, and sometimes you can even just take pictures, like take pictures or record your lifts. So record yourself doing one of the big lifts that you really want to get better at. So if it's a hip thrust, record yourself with how many weights you had on the bar so that you know next week, oh, I need to go back and watch my footage and I can see how many reps I got and when I was struggling, when my face started to change. And that's when I know, okay, now I can put some more weight on the bar. So always ask questions if you're unsure. If you're unsure, talk to your coach. Like if you feel like something in your program isn't right, you can chat with your coach and just ask them. There's no point in asking, and this is where we grow. So if you are always constantly just doing the same reps, the same sets, that also looks suspicious because it's like, well, nothing's actually changing. They're not pushing themselves here. So we need to see changes in your program. We need to see you pushing yourself and even asking for more difficult workouts because over a long period of time, you should be progressing and changing. So this is also your coach's job to go through your workouts and to periodize your training. So this is when we need to have like you go from beginner to intermediate and you have like um we change your program up and not so much the exercises, but we make it more difficult. We change the reps and sets. We increase the weight for you. So there's so much more to just going into training and not thinking about these things and using the intensity and increasing your lifts. So if you feel your volume's too high and you're not recovering well, then we need to look at like what can we do. So we might go from, I've had a lot of clients go from 5 sessions a week to 4 sessions a week, and from 4 sessions a week to 3 sessions a week. So as long as you're using that intensity, then you can bring the volume down a little bit. So if you're just going into the gym to move your body to stay consistent, then you might want to keep those 5 workouts a week if you know that you're never going to use intensity. There's so many different factors, but I just wanted you to be able to understand the intensity and the volume as well so that we can find the right intensity and volume for your workout. So train smarter and not harder. So intensity drives progress. Volume supports it. So intensity, how you train, the effort that you put into your sessions, that will help you get results. And the volume supports it. So whether you're training 3 times a week or 5 times a week, how many sets and reps you're doing is also important because remember, if you're not doing enough sets and reps or enough volume, then you're probably never going to change as well. So it's like if you wanted to grow your glutes, if you're only training your glutes once a week, the volume's going to be very low. So they're probably not going to grow, or if they do, they're going to grow at a much slower rate. But if you're training glutes 3 times a week, the volume around your glutes is quite high. So you are going to be able to progress faster just because you have more volume in a shorter space of time, but also you don't want to have so much volume that you're not able to recover. So recovery allows it. So if you are training glutes 3 times a week, you need to be making sure that you have a day off in between training glutes. So you can't train glutes like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because they're never going to have a chance to recover. They always need some time in between to recover. So consistency, effort, plus smart structure equals results. So together we need to make sure that we're having the right consistency, the right intensity in your workouts, the effort that you're putting into your reps and sets, smart structure. So we need to be making sure that you're having that rest period between your training as well, and also sleep and recovery and proper nutrition all around your training to get the best results. All right, so that's the end of the session. I hope that you enjoyed my explanations between training intensity, reps in reserve, sets, back off sets, warm-up sets. If there's anything that you did have any questions about after this session, please message me and let me know. And also, if you're looking to be trained by me, I will drop some details in the comments below. But yeah, I hope this explains it. My mission is to simplify nutrition and training so that you understand it, and also just to help lifestyle people like you get the best results, but also understand the importance behind training and nutrition, and knowing that we don't just go into the gym to like tick off the things